Yeah, well, it's a perfect example of what's happening in this administration because the Department of Justice has been pursuing that company for years. I mean, they had a settlement when you were involved, right? When they
Yep.
acquired Ticketmaster, they violated that settlement. They were found to be in violation. They entered a new settlement. And now still, we've had a trial. The Department of Justice had sued. The Department of Justice wasn't part of that trial because they settled the case in the first week with Live Nation. It was a pretty big surprise to a lot of people, but apparently it's been reported that there were lobbyists hired that influenced the administration and got a pretty good settlement for Live Nation out of it. But we have states that also enforce the antitrust laws. They can enforce the exact same laws the Department of Justice can, and they continued, most of them, a few settled, but most of them continued to pursue Live Nation, and they won a liability verdict from a jury that Live Nation has monopolized certain aspects of the live concert industry.
So put it all together, what does that likely mean for Paul Sweeney when he wants to buy tickets to a summer festival next year?
Well, let's just hope it means that those tickets are a little easier to get and less expensive. Probably not by next year, though. These things take a really long time. And it's highly likely that once the judge issues his remedy, which could take another 6 months, that Live Nation will then appeal that. And usually a remedy, particularly if it's fairly intrusive, it will be stayed pending the appeal, which means nothing's going to change. So when Paul buys his tickets next year, he's still going to face a lot of fees. Until this gets through the appeals process, possibly even get all the way through to the Supreme Court.
What happens with the ticket resellers, those other companies out there, Access, I'm thinking StubHub, did they have a role in all of this?
They do, because several of them have really been trying to get into what we call the primary ticketing market, not reselling, but being hired by the venue to sell the tickets for the concert in the first hand. And they've really struggled because Live Nation has such a stranglehold. So right now they're watching and waiting, hoping that whatever this remedy is that the judge imposes will open up competition and allow them to gain a little more market share, get a few more contracts with some venues, and sell more primary tickets.
All right, let me just get to some Iran news here. President Trump said Iran agreed to suspend its nuclear program indefinitely and will not receive any frozen funds from the U.S. Trump said in a phone interview on Friday that a deal to end the war, which the U.S. and Israel began with Iran in late February, is mostly complete. Talks over a lasting agreement will, quote, probably be held this weekend, the president said. Bloomberg Balance of Power with Joe Matthew will bring you all of the details in just a few minutes. Jen, let me get to another deal that's near and dear to my heart, which is Paramount Skydance.
Yes.
Acquiring Warner Brothers Discovery. Mega deal in the media space. What are the regulators going to say about this?
Well, in the U.S., they've already spoken, and they said, we're fine with it.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, the Department of Justice allowed the Hart-Scott-Rodino waiting period. That's the period the companies have to wait before they can close to allow for antitrust review. They allowed it to expire. Now, I've seen news that some subpoenas were sent out since then. I don't really think that means much because in the U.S. right now, legally, the companies can close. Cool. The reason they haven't is because they're waiting for Europe and UK, which also have jurisdiction to review the deal, and they cannot close until they get that. But I'm not so sure that the European regulators are going to have much of an issue with this because the impact is more on the U.S. in terms of labor and putting together those movie studios.
But we know that there's a lot of opposition, especially in the Hollywood creative community, to this deal. In fact, more than 1,000 Hollywood actors and screenwriters have, written this letter of opposition, really pointing out the harm that it will do. The goal, according to these folks, is to get state attorneys general to stand up and oppose this deal. Does that have any legs to it?
Absolutely. The states, as I said, can enforce the same antitrust laws as the Department of Justice. And they've been talking for several years now about stepping in. If the new Trump administration was lax on antitrust enforcement, they would step in and pick up the mantle and run with it. And we're seeing that they've done that. They have a lawsuit right now pending against the Nexstar Tegna deal, which was also cleared already by the FCC and the Department of Justice. And if they get enough pressure, if there's enough consumer concern about the Paramount deal, I could see the states bringing a lawsuit, and they have a shot.